Hi, I'm Amy, and this is the HalfCaffPodcast, where we'll talk about knitting and crochet and whatever else comes up. I'm sitting out here once again in my backyard, and I'm recording a little bit later than I anticipated because I forgot to charge my camera, and it was raining, and blah, blah, blah. So hopefully we don't get interrupted by every plane in existence, but I think they did that yesterday, so we'll see. Today's mug is My Little Pony mug. This is Rainbow Dash, and I have this. Why do I have this mug? This is actually my mug. It's not my kid's mug or anything like that. I used to be a really big My Little Pony fan, not in the 80s when I grew up so much, but the Friendship is Magic, My Little Pony, the incarnation that has happened in the last 10 years or something, I think. That show was actually, especially in season 1, was quite amusing, surprisingly amusing. And so I somehow became a fan and would really laugh at a lot of the jokes, especially made by Rainbow Dash. Actually isn't my favorite. It's just that she's most people's favorite. So that's the kind of mug. And of course I like everybody. But Pinkie Pie is definitely, I think, has the most funny lines and made me laugh the most. Anyway, so I'm not as much of a fan anymore. I've kind of let that lapse, but I still like my mug. It's got a cute little My Little Pony thing right in there too. This is relevant to crochet though, because I was getting into My Little Pony right around the same time that I was really heavily into crochet. I somehow saw something about, I think it was about like the My Little Pony phenomenon and bronies. Google it. And I think that I saw an advertisement for a convention, a My Little Pony convention. So I thought, I'm going to try being a vendor at the My Little Pony convention. And so I designed and kind of using some other designs. And I'll have to post them here if I can find them, and kind of making up my own for each different kind of pony. I made a ton of My Little Pony hats. When I got there, I was outrageously excited. I brought my little daughter with me, sold one thing the entire time. Two things. So it was kind of a bust. Got ragingly sick the last day. So I had to back up early, which is a no-no. So I would say, not a success. And still, I think of it very fondly. I was very surprised that it didn't sell. Thinking back on it now, I'm kind of thinking, I think that they want the real merch, and mine were like homemade versions, kind of like when you're a kid and you wanted McDonald's and your mom made you a hamburger at home instead. It's just not the same. I don't know. Anyway, so I still think of it fondly. I still like those early episodes of My Little Pony. Still quote them with my family now and then, and still love my Rainbow Dash mug, especially when it has coffee in it. Okay. I thought I had a lot to tell you, and I think I do, but it always looks like less when I gather it all together, so we'll see. But the first thing I want to talk about is what I'm wearing. I did finally finish the Dingley Dell tee. Love it 100%. It's right up there with the Into the Woods sweater as, I think, my favorite thing that I've made to wear. So let me stand up and show you. It's very comfortable. I love it. I'd make some tiny little tweaks on the fit, but just kind of like for my own fit, like nothing wrong with the pattern. Heartily recommend this. If you don't know about it, go on Ravelry, go on Instagram and look for the hashtag DingleyDellT. There are so many versions of this that people have made and are still making. I love practically all of them. I definitely love stripes and like the kind of sports stripe look. That's definitely my thing. So this was just right up my alley. I always wear V-necks. every chance I get. So this was magical, and I definitely need to make another one. I think I'd split for the sleeves personally for myself about 15 rows, 10 to 15 rows earlier. It's not a huge problem, but it is a little bit of a drag. So, and I think that's just kind of where I did follow the instructions. I say that all the time, the instructions. I did follow the instructions, of where to split for the sleeves. And I think for the size, it's a fine standard. It's just that I usually tend to kind of go up one size because I need more room in certain areas. But then a lot of times that means that it's a little bit big, in certain areas, like around the bust and around the sleeve break and things like that. It's not a problem though, as far as like, it's just something that I think that to perfect it, to tweak it for next time I would do. What else would I do? I think I would be more careful about the striping. And of course, that's the thing, because you want to plan like how many stripes are you going to have, like how many different colors, and also how wide are they going to be, so that you make sure that you've got, an even distribution of the color and the striping as you go. And mine's pretty good. Inevitably, when I do big fat stripes, I lose count, and one's like 29 rows and one's 32 rows, and and I don't want to pull it out. So I just get over it unless it's really, really bad. I'll usually see it if it gets really, really bad. So, but usually it's just like 1 or 2 row tweaks. And of course I did that on this one. That happens. But particularly, so you can see on this stripe, there's this little kind of pull, this little reverse dip. I don't know, this rise right here in the stripe. And it was definitely much worse. It kind of just like folded and disappeared right into it. So I did block it out. Maybe could do that one more time. But it blocked out pretty well. I bet, as you can see, that dip is still there. I did think that I would do some duplicate stitch if I had to. I hardly have any more of this, but I think, I have enough for a few stitches, I think. So I would do some duplicate stitch right here if I had to just kind of even that line out. But, it's duplicate stitch isn't always like perfect. I thought that might mess up the cleanness of the lines, even if it's subtle, and maybe I'm the only one who notices it. Who knows? You don't know until you try, and it wouldn't really hurt to try, because I could just pull it out if I don't like it. And just be careful with the tension of how I'm doing it, as one should with duplicate stitch. But I did notice that in the projects on Ravelry and other examples I was seeing, that some people did get this little pull. And I think that's just, because you're coming back later and doing the ribbing. And so it kind of, right here at the V, you're really trying to accentuate that sharpness. And I think that that's just sort of how that happens. I think you'd notice it less if the stripe didn't end there. And that's what I'm talking about being more careful about where the stripes end. I think that I would want to plan it more so that the V ends in the middle of a stripe, probably its own color, so that the pull isn't as obvious if it exists at all. So the stripes, I think I did the stripes about 30 rows, and I'd say I'd want it toward the top, or at least no lower than the middle. So like at the 15th row, I want to be ending or joining together. Hopefully that would work out as I think it will. I'm sure that will cause other logistical problems that I haven't thought of yet. So these 3 colors are Voolenvine yarns in her Footsie fingering base, the sock base. This is History Bound, this is Rosewater, and this is Blood Moon. I had to get a little creative with the ribbing on the bottom because, as you can see, I wanted kind of the dominant tie-in color to be the Blood Moon. So I did the cuffs with that, with just like the little stripe of the History Bound, and same here. But on the bottom, I did not have enough to do as much ribbing as I would want to do in the Blood Moon colorway. So I actually ended up extending the History Bound colorway, and then striping in not only the Blood Moon, but the Rosewater too. And I really like how that turned out. In fact, I think I'm going to do that again. That's not what the pattern, shows you, but really the striping is, she gives you guidance about the striping, but so many people have done so many different things with the striping, and that's kind of the fun part. So it's not like I deviated from pattern or anything like that. I mean, it wouldn't matter if I did. That you're kind of supposed to fit yourself. Why am I so weird?
Why are you weird? Why are you weird?
It's probably because I haven't seen you for a while. Anyway, so I've actually been revisiting a lot of whips lately, especially I finished a pair of socks that I'd only done one. Second sock syndrome is a thing for me. It's true. I don't do two at a time. Don't come at me. A pair of socks, another pair of socks that I've started that I'll probably finish today or tomorrow, and a top and a hat. So I've kind of just like pulled some of those things out, and I'm finishing a lot of the whips. There's still some old ones to get back to, and they're really long with their blankets and stuff. So, eventually, yeah. But I'm really thrilled to kind of be emptying out some project bags and crossing some stuff off my whip list. So this is one of them. It's kind of challenging to show on camera. It doesn't fit me. I didn't make my size. I don't always. And in fact, because I sell stuff in my shop and usually at fairs when life is normal, I don't always make my size. I just make whatever size that I want to, or that I have the yarn for, or whatever, and don't always have a person in mind because I'll just end up likely selling it in my shop. So I think that's what I had in mind when I started this one. So this is, I think it's the size medium. I don't know if this is a top I would have made for myself had I been thinking about it and done it in this whole year of knitting for myself, because there's no fairs and no people to knit for anyway, except for myself. But it is really pretty, and they're definitely my colors. And it's got a V-neck cut, so that's really flattering. It's a V-neck because it's actually a wrap top, so I'm going to put it over myself. But like I said, it's hard to see, so I'm going to show you some pictures in a minute. So here's the one side, and it's green, and then the other side and then here's the back. And then it actually, because it wraps, it ties in the back, and those wrap together. So this is really hard to show you. So here come the pictures. What I really like about the top, and what drew me to the top, is the leaf detail. The other thing I really like about this top is that it's not designed this way, but it's a really easy modification to make it so that the wrap can go either way. So you can either have, so you'll see that there's two colors here. And the pattern usually just has the right side cross over. So you can have the full effect of the two-tone on the front and then the solid color in the back. You can actually, with a really easy modification while you're doing the seaming, make a place for both, for either one to be able to cross over and then tie it in the back. So I've got one green strap and one brown strap attached to each respective side. And I can just flip it whenever I want, which I think is a really great look. Through the Leaves wrap top by Prairie Fox Studios. The yarn, I don't remember what the green is. It's just been in my stash for a long time. But the brown is Apple Fiber Studios, and that is on their one of their fingering bases. I'm not sure which one, but it is the color Cedar Canoe. So next is another one that you've seen as a whip, and now it's finished. The other day I went on a ferry for the first time in quite a while, a local ferry here, to take my daughter and a friend of hers over to an island just for fun, get some ice cream, do whatever, explore. And ferry knitting is the best. Unfortunately, it's kind of a short ferry, so I didn't get much knitting, but I knew I had to bring something really easy. So again, I just grabbed a sock. So I've been doing a lot of this whip knitting kind of on accident, but it's pretty cool. So this is the Constellate hat. And that is by Hunter Hammersen. The yarn is fiber optic yarns in their Kashmir fingering, and the colorway is ice. This is actually a really long cuff. You can certainly wear it slouchy if you wanted to, but I actually meant it to be rolled up. And in the pattern, she's actually really specific about how you might want it to look if you roll it up. So you need to do certain things a certain way to get it to look like this. So every purl is purled through the back loop. It's twisted. And that's what gives, not only in here, but also here, that's what gives these nice ridges. I really like how this turned out. It's a really nice light hat to wear. It's not like a heavy kind of winter hat. Obviously it's not a summer hat, but it's something that's really just sort of easy and light to wear. And it stretches a lot. So it looks kind of small, but it's really not. I didn't necessarily make this for me. I just thought, hey, I have this yarn and this is a really cool stitch and I want to do it. So I did it. So I think this is going to be for sale in my shop as well. I have plenty of this yarn left. So maybe I'll make a matching pair of mittens or just a different pair of mittens or fingerless gloves. Next thing I want to show you. So these are the Seersucker Socks. And this is a pattern by Marina's Yarn Harbor. The seersucker is so named because of the patterning on the body of the sock or the leg of the sock up here, but also maybe just the top of the foot up here. This is done in Cedar House yarns in their one of their sock bases, sapling sock, and the colorway I'm pretty sure is called Sunstone. Pretty sure. So you may notice that these are, there are slight differences in the socks. And I've realized that that's kind of something that I end up doing, obviously not really on purpose, but I don't really care about it. They look, similar enough and they're about the same size and that kind of thing, but I did the socks separately. So I did this as a test knit. So this one was the test knit and I just randomly, this is when I was trying to figure out what cuffs, how to cast on and how to get a good fitting cuff that's not too tight and all of that kind of thing. I think I'm getting better at that. So I tried this picot edging. I don't know why. It was a total whim. This picot edging cast on, and it's really cute. It's actually looser than I want, and I fixed that in the other sock. And then I did just the pattern according to, how she's got it set up. The second sock I started making on the ferry just a couple days ago, or a week ago or something. So I ended up really the only difference is, the only intentional difference is that I didn't do that cast on. Really what I've found is, even though I've been trying a number of different things, the long tail cast on is what works for me. It's what keeps this snug enough, but it's got enough stretch for me. When I make socks for my husband, he needs a lot more room in this area. So if the long tail cast on does not work for him. So I think it's funny, people talk about socks as being like their easy go-to project, but for me, it's kind of anything but, because even though the construction of the sock, especially when you just do like a heel flap and gusset, is, pretty basic. You can kind of like memorize that. All the tweaks for it to fit really how I want it to fit, they're all individual depending on who you're making it for. So kind of memorizing that, or at least figuring that out, has been sort of I don't know if I'd say it's a deterrent, but it's a little bit of a deterrent because, you just want to sit down and knit. You don't want to be like, is this going to fit? Am I doing this right? What did I do last time? Did that work or didn't that? Did I take good notes? Anyway, I've ranted about socks before. So I have figured out that the long tail cast on works for me. I've also figured out that at least this much, but not too much more than this, works for me. But like, for example, for my husband, he needs a lot more up here to really fit how he wants it to. So all those kinds of tweaks are necessary. So here I just messed up. So I did this. This was not a mess up. This was intentional. I wanted to have the proper cast on. For me, I don't care that they don't match. It's not, even if you could see it, I don't really care. As long as they're just generally, the matching sock, same color and stuff. But I actually ended up, what did I do? I had this facing the wrong way. So when I was doing the pattern, it made this like ridge of, it's not quite garter, but it almost looks like it's starting to be garter until I finally realized, whoops. And did I pull it out? Nah, I don't care. So one of a kind in a pair. So here's what I love about the Seersucker socks. It's the same thing that I hate. This has a lot of purling because you, obviously for the heel flap and stuff, when you're doing work and turn for a heel flap and gusset, there's purling, and I don't mind that, but there's purling throughout for the seersucker pattern. And it's just basically the combination of knits and purls and how they're stacked onto each other that makes this kind of like seersucker effect, which is really cool. I don't mind purling. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. What I really mind is just the constant back and forth, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. And, there's a lot of that in here. Now, it's a repeat that's easy to memorize, so that's nice. It's not as easy to read your knitting. You can do it, but you just need to really look because it's so small. You need to be able to tell, is that a purl or is there a knit jammed on top of that purl that I can't tell because it's just so small and I haven't gotten, rows to be able to see that that's the case. So that can be kind of challenging. You just need to keep a little bit of track. So I don't like the switching from knit to purl, but I will say that they fit marvelously because of that. Not just because, of course, I made the right stitch counts and et cetera, but if this were just a plain sock, it wouldn't fit as nice as this seersucker that just kind of hugs your foot. I think that's, true with, if you do even like a 3x1 ribbing pattern just down the top or whatever, that same kind of thing can be accomplished. But I just feel like it makes just a slightly denser material with this, all over switch around knits and purls. And so these are really cozy to wear. And they have a really nice fit. So that's really got it going for it. And I do recommend that pattern because of that. So those were partially my fairy socks, Ferry. And these are just, I don't think I've showed you these either. And unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the yarn. It's really pretty though. Look at like the intensity of those colors. This is one of those that you get and it works up totally different than even what you see in here. I've talked about that before with a different skein, and this one does it as well. So this is how the skein looks, and you can see all those colors. This is how it works up. Mostly olive green with, some pink stripes. It's not my favorite, but I don't care. I've got it. I can turn it into socks. It's fantastic. So this is the first sock. And again, this is for my husband. So again, I had to figure out what I'm doing with the cuff and how long I have to make it. And is this wide enough and blah, 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 blah. I think I've got that down. There'll probably be more tweaks in the future, but I think I've got that down. So I decided to start making the other sock. I really, except for the fact that you can kind of forget what you were doing if you did any changes to the pattern or if you have to make certain tweaks. Other than that, I kind of like doing another sock another time because then it's so fast and suddenly you're done. Wow, you have a pair of socks because yesterday Amy did that other sock and today Amy will be doing the next sock. And so it feels like it goes faster, even though that's totally an illusion. I know this could be fixed with 2 at a time. That's just one of those many things on the short list of things I haven't done yet. Side note, what is on your short list of things to try? For me, it's 2 at a time socks, I guess, brioche, steeking, and I really want to make myself a cardigan because that's the one thing I haven't made yet. And the cardigan and steeking could go really well together. I have a lot of superwash, so I kind of want to tackle a steek with non-superwash, 100% wool, really make sure it's sticky yarn, but that is definitely something on my list. So what is on your list that you haven't done yet, but that you're totally meaning to do? I'm sure I have a few more on there. Anyway, so this is marking where the heel started on him because I had him try this on and then wear it for a few days, just the one, so that he could see how this really wears what this feels like. Does this loosen up? Does it get too loose after you wear it for a while? I mean, obviously, knitting will stretch, but like, is it going to end up being comfortable once he's been wearing it? So I ended up marking the heel for that when he had it on, and he wore this for a few days. That was a few months ago, or I don't know how long. Time has no meaning. So this is the second sock. I'm decently far. This is cuffed down, so I've done the leg. There's the heel flap, and I've just turned the heel. So we're just going to do the gusset, close that up, and then the foot and the toe. So probably, maybe not today, but tomorrow, depending on how much I do this. And I do tend to knit a lot, but I also tend to jump from project to project, so we'll see. This is the Crazy Sock Ladies vanilla sock on 9-inch circulars. It's kind of my go-to pattern, I think, because usually, as I've said before, usually I'm using kind of like wacky colored variegated yarns, and so I'm just letting the yarn speak for itself. However, there really is something to say about that, patterning across the instep, like the Seersucker socks. So now I'm into works in progress, and I have a couple to show you. One is temporarily a failure, and it's a failure for the second time. So before I frog it and try to find a third, and try to do it a third time, I wanted to show it to you. So this is a pattern I've completely forgotten to write down, but I'll, put it here so you can see it. It's a crochet shawl, and it's not, there's no lace, there's no anything. It's just a striping pattern. But as I've said before, I really like stripes, and I really like stripes along a monochromatic, spectrum. So all in those different tones of the same shade or the same, color. So I ended up getting a fade kit from, Montana Crochet, I believe it was. And she dyed this beautiful fade of greens. But when I received it, there wasn't enough contrast between each shade for me to get the effect that I wanted. It's still totally gorgeous, and I'm using the yarn. But so what I ended up doing, I got 3 skeins, and I ended up only being able to use 2 of them so that I could get enough of the contrast. But so I still needed a light color. So this is the medium and the dark. And what are they called? One of these is, this colorway is called Loch. L-O-C-H. And this color is Spruce. A big green fan. Love these tones. But there was a colorway in the middle of these that I don't remember what it was called. And so there just wasn't enough of a contrast to get the look that I wanted for this shawl that I'm doing. So what I decided to do at first was just get some kind of like an ivory color, maybe close to this rosewater, but not quite as pink, and substitute that. And it did look really pretty and, a little more graphic, but I really wanted that just all greens. And so I did quite a bit of an ivory section, and then, kind of saw it all together and thought, as nice as that is, it's not what I want. So I pulled it all out, started over again, and ended up ordering a sage. She doesn't, the Montana Crochet didn't have another color that I could see that I could pair with it. So I, looked around on some of my go-to yarns. I got sage kind of color from Cedar House Yarns. Let me see if I can pull the tag out and tell what it's called. It's called Sage. So I got another of her sapling sock colorways, and decided that I would try a sage color. Seems like it would be safe. So here's the sage. It's perfect, right? It's gorgeous. But when I held them all together, I thought they looked great. So here you've got them all together. And I think, yeah, I think that'll work, right? And then I started knitting it up, and I had a similar problem. It just wasn't right. So here's what it looks like. It looks really gray next to the others. And I think really, you know, with the spruce, it would probably look okay. But I think with this lighter green, it's a little too gray. I almost think like, I don't want to get like a mint or something, but I almost think I need to, you know, steer a little bit more toward a kind of a brighter, not so gray, not so blue. So it's back to the drawing board. I am going to pull this out. Yeah, and I got to pull it out basically to here. So pull most of this out again. And then I'm going to take those colors into my new favorite LYS and see if I can find a good match that I think will look good, because I thought that looked good when I got it. I did order it, you know, online, so you can never tell. But even when it got here, I thought, oh yeah, it'll work, and it didn't. Or at least not what I wanted it for. So I'm going to take it into a shop and see if I can find the right color finally. Third time's a charm, I hope. If you'll recall, if you watched episode 3, I shared a couple of whips that I was working on, and I am sorry to say that I ended up frogging those. The first one was, unfortunately, the vest. It's not a vest. I kept calling it a vest. The kind of camisole tank top thing that I was making for my mom. I'm so excited that I was able to figure out what stitch that I was trying to copy, because I was making a copy of her, of a tank top that she loved that didn't no longer fit. So I was trying to recreate it for her, and I did figure out the stitch, and I did a lot of work on it, a lot of work, but I was kind of winging it, and that's not really my forte, and so I was hoping I was going to figure it out, and I did the bodice, and, or, you know, the top portion, and I didn't really like it, even though, you know, it was copying the original. It didn't look great, and I made it way too big, and I couldn't figure out how I wanted to get the decreases, and I took it up to her, and it didn't really fit well, even the bottom, and I don't know, I did a whole lot on it, but I lost a lot of steam when I realized what I had done wasn't even working, and I didn't even really like it. Maybe I'll make her something else, but that was just, I decided to just let that one go. I also decided to frog the Widow's Web shawl. That's also something that I started in episode 3, and I did just start that to just kind of see what I thought about it. And so I wasn't even promising myself I'd finish it. It's a lovely pattern, and it makes a lovely shawl, and I'm not saying that I won't get back to it or, you know, try another version, but somebody recently asked me to make them one, and I thought, let me revisit the pattern and see, you know, if I can commit to that, right? And I realized that there's just some pieces in the pattern. It's not complicated. It's just lace is still being really challenging for me. And if I mess it up, of course, you know, even with a lifeline, trying to pick back up where you are and undo lace portions is just, it's just, that doesn't bring me happiness either. I also frogged the, I'll put it here, I think it's called the Fior de Mer shawl. That's a lovely accent, I'm sure. The pattern may be fine, but I, even with meticulous care and even ripping back and completely starting over at least once or twice, I kept screwing it up. It kept being off. And, you know, with lace in particular, it's usually not something that you can fudge, because you really have to land those stitches on top of the other proper stitches to make the holes in the right way, right? So if you get off, or if you can't figure out what you've done, it will look wrong. And this pattern is pretty specific, so it would make a really gorgeous like lotus flower look. But if I mess that up, you're not going to get that effect, and so you know, I can't fudge it. So I pulled that one out as well. So that's sort of a bummer, but letting those things go so that I can make lovely things that I do like. Speaking of frogging, you remember this guy, Frog of Frog and Toad, by the pattern of the Frog and Toad pattern by Frog and Cast. So I wanted to get started on Toad, and then I realized that the perfect yarn, I'd gotten this yarn a long time ago without Frog in mind or anything. I just loved it and was going to use it. This is Nua by Stolen Stitches. It's a sport weight, and it turned out to just be perfect for frog. Now I also have a darker color, kind of a gray brown color that I love, and I was just going to use that for toad. Perfect, right? Then I started to pull out all the stuff and look at the pattern for a toad again and look at the coloring, and I realized that that was not going to work at all. You know, frog, there's, you know, my own copy of the book. I love these. Frog that was a pretty good match. Frog's a little bit lighter than what I had, but it's a pretty good match. But toad is not this like gray brown at all. I mean, he's practically orange. And you know, when you look, yeah, even throughout the book, like sometimes he looks a little bit more toward the brown side, but still pretty orangey brown. So I was like, I really want to get this one perfect, because that's how you can really tell who they are and what they are. You know, the closer you nail it, unless you get close but no cigar, the closer you nail it, the better off you're going to be. So as I said, you know, Frog is still a little bit dark, but I think he'll be okay, but I had to get Toad right. The gray brown was not cutting it. So I found what I hope is going to be perfect. I haven't started it yet. This is also by Stolen Stitches, Nua. What's the tag? And so this is the same exact yarn, gonna work out the same way. It's just in a better color, and I think that's pretty close to nailing it. I feel good about this one. So I am going to start Toad soon. I don't know if I'll have him to show you next time. We'll see. I think that's all I have to show you. My coffee's cold. Still good. It's turning into a gorgeous day, really nice and cool post-rain. Big fluffy clouds in the sky. It's going to be perfect to do some Sunday knitting. So I'm definitely going to be doing that. And I'm listening to an audiobook, as I really like to do in the summers. Sit outside and knit or crochet to audiobooks. The one I'm listening to right now is actually, I'm listening to a lot of old favorites. I'm kind of revisiting the past, I guess, with the whips and the old favorite books. So I'm revisiting a book by one of my favorite authors, F.G. Cottam. I'm listening to his, this second one is called Dark Resurrection. It's so dramatic. And it's the second in a series of 3 books about this, about New Hope Island and all the spooky stuff that happened there. Definitely recommend it if you're into ghost stories or the like. I often like to watch podcasts of other knitters while I'm knitting, as hopefully you do, because hello. So I wanted to take a minute to mention my sister podcaster, it's Magda Knits. You can find her on Instagram as well. She's got a YouTube channel. She and I started our YouTube channels about the same time. I love to watch her podcasts, again, not just because we're kind of podcast buddies, but one thing I really like about her podcast, she is really like straightforward and honest about what her opinion was about what she knitted and what worked and what didn't. And I love that. She's funny, and so I laugh a lot, but I also just sort of like respect that straightforward, this is what I think of the pattern, this is what I think of my project. And so it feels like a real conversation, and she's just fun to listen to. The other thing I really like about her is she's doing a little bit of everything. She'll show you her knitting, but she's really kind of just barely gotten into spinning and trying her hand at dyeing. And so you get to see all of that, and from the beginner's point of view, for her, you know, kind of saying, well, I just jumped into it and tried it, and here's what went wrong, you know. So again, she ends up making me really laugh. And in one of her recent podcasts, she just said that she lost the plot while she was trying to dye, and so anyway, this is what she ended up with, and here you go, right? And so she's always fun to watch. I heartily recommend her. She gave me a shout out a couple episodes ago, and I definitely want to give her the return, because I really enjoy watching her. That's all the knitting I have to show you, and all the blather about what I'm listening to and doing. I did want to mention that I took a short trip recently, and hopefully more short trips are in my near future. But I recently went to this cute little alpine village that's near us, a little kind of a tourist area, but it's really cute. one we've been to before, and we stayed in a tiny house because I'm obsessed with tiny houses. So we stayed in a tiny house near a campground, and that was really fun. So I'm gonna put some of the footage, good or not, I don't know, at the end of the video. A lot of what you might see is actually one of our favorite shops in that little village. It's a Christmas shop, and it's got a huge, obviously, array of Christmas ornaments and decorations and things like that. And it's just such a warm, fuzzy place to go into if you like that kind of thing. But they also have a little section in there that's devoted to Halloween and like a little Halloween town and stuff. So I took a lot of footage of that. So my footage is definitely not professional, but hopefully you'll enjoy it as kind of something different to show you. That does it for me. That's all the knitting I have to show you, and hopefully I'll see you again in a little while. Thanks for watching. Bye.